So stall spin awareness, found in Advisor Circuit 61-67 Charlie, is basically how to recognize a stall and a spin, recover from a stall and a spin, and prevent stalls and spins. So a stall is when the airflow over the wing, or actually the wing, cannot produce enough lift due to no airflow going up the wing. A spin is when an airplane has stalled, but it's not coordinated, causing one wing to move faster and the airplane to spin. Stall is when the angle of attack, the critical angle of attack, has been exceeded. The critical angle of attack is the angle between the chord line, which is an imaginary line running from the leading edge to the trailing edge of a wing, and the relative wind. When that has been exceeded, the airflow separates from the wing, making the wing not produce any lift. The primary causes for stalls are pilots not paying attention. So on takeoff, when you take off and you just pull back really hard and you're not paying attention to your airspeed, or more importantly, your critical angle of attack, and you exceed it, and you stall the airplane. A spin, the primary cause is distraction because that's what a stall is. So, stall awareness and recognition. You can recognize a stall, the onset of a stall, because the airplane will start buffeting a little bit. You notice a little sloppiness in the controls, but more importantly, you'll be able to see with your nose to the horizon that there's a steep angle, and with your wing to the horizon, relative horizon, that there's an extremely steep angle. Those would be indications that you could be entering near a stall, because a stall is not based off your airspeed, your altitude. It is based off of your angle of attack. A spin awareness is if you're entering a stall and you're uncoordinated. So if the ball is not within the lines, meaning the rudder is not lined up behind the nose, so if you're stalling, it's supposed to go like this, going up, but instead you're coming up slightly like this, you're uncoordinated, the swing's going to snap down and cause you to spin. There's two primary types of stalls, power on, power off stall. Power on stall is usually on takeoff, and that's when you take off and you pull back really hard and you stall the airplane because you can't create a lift. Power off stall is when you're coming in to land and you have low power on and maybe you're trying to stretch out something, like your engine's out and you're trying to stretch your glide a little bit, so you keep pulling back till you exceed your critical angle of attack and you stall. Stall recovery is you have full power, put your nose down, bring it back to the horizon, and make sure when you bring it back to the horizon, you don't pull up too hard again, entering a secondary stall. Spins, there's three main types of spins. You have the spiral, which is where the plane just spirals down to the ground. You have an inverted, which is a spiral, but the plane is upside down. And then you have a flat. A flat spin is due to an aft CG. CG, center of gravity, is near the aft of the plane. What happens is you stall the plane, and the plane then spins, not spiraling, but around the center of gravity, which is in the aft part of the plane. A flat spin is the most dangerous spin and is basically unavoidable in recovery. Our recovery for spins can be remembered by the acronym PAIR, which is power idle, put your ailerons to neutral, you apply opposite rudder. So if your plane is spinning down to the left, you apply opposite right rudder to stop your spin. Once the spin has been stopped, you briefly push forward on the yoke to break the stall so you can regain airflow coming over your wings, and then you pull back gently on the yoke to then recover. So we're going to be learning about steep spiral. Steep spiral is similar to a turnaround at point, as in you are keeping an equal distance from a point, except in a steep spiral, your engine's off for an idle, and you're in a power off glide down to try and land on that point. Like in turns around a point, your ground speed varying means you have to vary your bank to match the ground speed. So as your ground speed increases, you must increase your bank angle. As your ground speed decreases, you must decrease your bank angle. So as we can see here, the wind is blowing from west to east. So the proper way to perform a steep spiral is you would enter on what would almost be a downwind, because if this is your point, you're entering on the downwind to your point. This is where you have a medium bank. It's steeper than your crosswind, but it's not as steep as your base turn. We can see you have a steeper one because you have tailwind, so you're going to be going faster. We then proceed over to the base turn, where you have your steepest because although your ground speed is high, not as fast as this one, you have a direct crosswind pushing you away from your point. You then are going to continue going, and you're going to turn on either your upwind or your final, in which you're going to have a shallower bank than your base and your downwind because you have a headwind, so you're moving really slow. You're then going to keep coming back around, and you're going to come over to your crosswind, where you're going to have the shallowest bank out of all of them. Doing a steep spiral, you want to do about 3 turns and clear the engine about once every turn, usually on your upwind side, so that the engine doesn't get too cool and you'll foul your spark plugs. So you also want to keep an equal distance. It's recommended that you keep a quarter-mile distance from your turning point. That is usually between the wing root and the fuselage. If you can keep the point between your wing root and fuselage, you're going to maintain about a quarter mile from the object you're turning around. To then proceed into a landing, what you're going to do is you're then going to just make it into a power off 180. So you're going to go straight out then on your final 360, and you're just going to do your downwind, your base, and your final, and come into lane.